Hi there. Recently I've been hearing a lot about semen retention or non-ejaculation, and it's sort of one of these new old topics that circulates in sort of new age community, and it's supposedly if men refrain from ejaculating, it's really good for our health and longevity. And the way I'm going to approach this is basically by going through and pretty much rebutting much of what's being said. And this is actually based on an article called 5 Surprising Health Benefits of Semen Retention. And I'm not coming in as just one of these sort of medical skeptics that poo-poos everything that's new age and that isn't supported by scientific evidence. Myself, in 2009 to 2011, I engaged in studying this kind of thing. I read Mantak Chia's book and engaged in some of his practices. And also I did a course by a fellow called Destin Gerrick called Orgasmic Mastery, in which you learn to prolong your period of arousal. So basically it's about lasting longer and getting into having a choice about how or when you ejaculate during sexual arousal. So and I'm also very interested in biology and do a lot of research. So I'm really coming at this from both sides and trying to be as even and balanced about it as I can. And my experience with this stuff is that yes, sex can last longer, and it's really awesome, and you do have these deeper and more sort of whole body orgasms and experiences of like an electrical kind of orgasm, and they can call it a dry orgasm. So you feel like you're coming, but there's no ejaculation, and these can be quite prolonged. So instead of it like an ejaculation just lasting a few seconds, like a peak orgasm, the whole body orgasms can last for a minute or two. And there's some other practices that are involved that really help this process, to do with touching. Prostate massage really helps. So there's quite a lot to this stuff, and I certainly wouldn't entirely sort of throw it all in the rubbish can. Without much further ado, let's have a look. So the first thing that this article says is sadly there are very few articles written about the concrete, tangible mental, emotional and physiological benefits of semen retention on a man's health. Now, of course, if you're a skeptic like me, this is a light bulb come on moment. Anytime there isn't good empirical evidence to support some particular cultural practice, you kind of want to question it. I mean, it's more likely than not that what the author is saying is going to be wrong. Science has been studying sexuality for quite a long time, in biology, and we understand what the purpose of reproduction is. We know what the biological function of ejaculation is for, and pretty much our entire existence as biological organisms revolves around finding and attracting a mate, impregnation and parenthood. I mean, that's what produces offspring, and therefore the next generation, and so on and so on. So this is really what sex is all about in biological sense. Obviously there's an emotional side to it and a part to it that it plays in pair bonding as well. So yeah, it's part of our emotional lives. So let's get on to point number 1, lasting longer. Well, first of all, the you can last longer argument isn't really an argument for semen retention. So straight away, point number 1 is a dead and null point. It says nothing about the benefits of semen retention in terms of health and longevity. However, it does say that you can please your partner more. Most men come within 2 or 3 minutes of penetrative thrusting sex, and lasting longer is definitely more pleasurable to women, and they love it, and they go into deeper states of orgasm, which is wonderful, and it's great for the male experience is good too. So I kind of agree with this point, but it's an irrelevant point. Then he goes on and says this contributes to the mental and emotional health of a man by giving him a sense of personal empowerment in regard to his sexuality and a deeper sense of self-confidence, knowing that he can sexually satisfy his partner. I'm not sure if the empowerment's quite the right word here. I think if we turned it around and said to a woman, if you were very much committed to moulding your sexual response or process around meeting the exact desires of a man, we wouldn't say that was a woman being empowered. No, I think that's more like serving the other person and not being empowered. That said, of course, the sexual dynamic, you need both sides of the equation need to be win-win. So women need to be sufficiently enjoying sex in order to want to do it, and likewise for men. If you as a man are going to get into this process and invest quite substantial time and resources in prolonging your ability to give pleasure by not ejaculating, then you want to see the other side of this. You want to be with a woman who's prepared to really meet your sexual needs as well. Whether that's for blowjobs or for rimming or whatever the particular desires are you have as a man. Then you need those to be met too. Number 2, multiple orgasms. So as I mentioned before, when you engage in this process of not ejaculating or consciously avoiding ejaculation, men are capable of going into this multiple orgasmic state. But like point number 1, this is not an argument for non-ejaculation. It's merely an argument for putting off ejaculation, so that you enjoy sex for longer and you can go into these deeper orgasmic states in the body. It also says that men generally roll over and fall asleep after their first ejaculation. In my experience, this is actually nothing to do with ejaculation. It's really because the male or the man is not looking after himself, not getting enough sleep and rest, and not well enough nourished. Now, undoubtedly, ejaculation alters your hormonal balance, so you go into a more restive state. But I've had experiences from tantric massage where I have ejaculated, but where I've had the whole body process that goes along with that, and the deeper process of arousal. And what I got from that was actually an elevated level of energy, even though I'd ejaculated, and I felt great for the rest of the day, and I felt fine the next day. So these things are actually much more plastic than we think. And there's a lot more factors that go into making for sort of a healthy level of fertility and energy overall. But obviously, well fed and rested, healthy plant-based diet, all these kinds of things are really going to help, and really meeting your nutritional needs and other emotional needs. Anyway, that was point number 2. It's another non-point like number 1. So now we come on to point number 3, and this is the time for the face palm. This is the biggest fail of the semen retention argument, and the one that I'm really going to blow to pieces. So what it says is increased sex drive for point number 3, and a fairly recent study from China showed that semen retention increases testosterone levels by 45% after 7 days. Wow! Testosterone is integrally linked to sex drive and sexual response in men. Well, the problem with this is, it's just completely wrong. It's completely round the wrong way. Prolonged elevated testosterone is really bad news for men. It's associated with increased morbidity and mortality. It's basically men who get into long-term relationships as fathers in a stable pair bond and enjoy regular sex with their partners. They live the sort of healthiest, happiest, and longest lives. Now, of course, there could be a lot of psychological stuff that comes in with this as well, but I think it's pretty clear that a lot of this is to do with lowered testosterone levels. Basically, once you're in a pair bond and you're having regular ejaculatory sex that produces children, this is a biological indicator of a successful male. You're doing your reproductive role. And what happens is, basically with men we have 2 reproductive modes. Like the alpha mode is the unmated mode. It's associated with elevated testosterone, high physical activity and productivity, and that attracts women. That is like the mate attracting behaviour of an unmated male. He's out there, being all alpha and so forth, and women love that and they're really attracted to it. But it's not good for men. It's not good because of this elevated testosterone. And then you have your sort of beta or father mode of maleness. This is feminizing. This is with the lower testosterone. It's associated with less activity, drive and focus. And what it does is it turns men, it sort of feminizes men, so they become more like women, and they become more nurturing and of course more focused on meeting the needs of their partner and their offspring. But alas, this is less attractive for women. Women are not attracted to men in this state because of course there are sexually active females are looking typically for a mate. So yeah, this really is the Achilles heel of this article, and it's the point that completely disproves and discredits this claim about semen retention being good. In fact, the science we do have is that ejaculation regularly, but not frequently, is beneficial. It reduces the probability of you having prostate cancer. And also it raises the quality of your semen, so you're more fertile. And so the answer really here is about balance. It's about you want to avoid pornography and making yourself come every day multiple times. That's too much. It's not good for you. What we're talking about being optimal is probably ejaculation once or twice a week. Never forcing it. I mean, I would say just never force anything in your body. Wait for your body to become aroused and to notice that raised sexual energy, and engage in some of these processes that prolong sex by all means, but it's still good to ejaculate. One of the experiences I've had when I'm practicing these prolonging processes is something called blue ball or blue balls. And this is a very painful condition that occurs when reproductive fluids build up in the genitals and are not released. It doesn't always happen, but it is very painful. It's very uncomfortable, and really, it's a message from millions of years of evolution that's telling us that what we're doing is maladaptive and it's fundamentally not good for you. And pain really should be heeded. Any kind of pain or discomfort in the body, it's the primitive wisdom of our genes built up over millions of years, and ignore that stuff at your peril. Personally, my preference is if anything's painful, avoid it or be very careful about it, because basically biologically it's wrong. Number 4, physical vitality. So the article then goes on to explain that high performance athletes are discouraged from sexual activity the night or morning before an event. So what? I mean, do high performance athletes live longer or healthier lives? I don't think there's much evidence of that. What doctors tend to say is stuff like if you're exercising to improve life expectancy and long-term cardiovascular health, be moderate about with it. So you really don't want to be caning it physically. I don't think that's a good idea. If you look at the evidence, extreme athletes actually damage their hearts. They get scarring on the muscles in their hearts and stuff like that. So okay, great. Maybe you're the best and really alpha and all of that. But this is all on the back of this elevated testosterone, and probably not good long term. And then there's various other statements which just sound like woo. An ounce of semen is considered to be equal in value to 60 ounces of blood. Blah 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 blah. And there's quite a lot more of this stuff. Look, there's no science behind this at all. One thing I did discover is that men who come into fertility earlier, so they start producing semen and sperm earlier in their life, They don't mature or have experienced retarded growth and development. They develop perfectly normal, just as everyone else. So this kind of makes you think, well, it can't be that much of a detriment to be fertile and ejaculating. Anyway, the article does end with, I think, a very fair point. It says, all of this being said, it is important for men to ejaculate sometimes. Now, the question, of course, is the frequency, and according to the article, they quote this supposed expert, Jacques Drouin, the founder of this particular style of Tantra. He recommends an ejaculation frequency of once every 6 weeks for his male students over the age of 35. Now, there's no references to this, there's no science behind this again, it's probably just based on some kind of experience. But I just come back to this, the science is actually saying that regular ejaculation is healthy and beneficial, and I also come back to, again, what I just said earlier. The best thing for a man is to be in a long-term established relationship with a woman, having regular sex, and who's a father. All of these things will get your testosterone levels nice and low, and will help you to live a longer and healthier life, and I think also a happier life. So yeah, focus on the togetherness and all the other lovely things that come with being closely bonded to somebody. And yeah, for sure, embrace this non-ejaculatory stuff, but I'd say just don't take it too seriously, and bear in mind what I've been saying. Thanks for listening.